Okay, so we're going to talk a little bit about distance and the midpoint formula. So how this works is if you have 2 points, oops, 2 points in space, there is some kind of distance between them. Okay, so we'll call this D. And if you want to know the distance between those, you can take the measurement from here. That's the same height as this. So you can take the distance from here to here. Let's call this A. You can take the distance from here to here. And B, obviously this point is not necessarily, doesn't actually exist, but what ends up being formed is called a right triangle. And a long time ago, Pythagorean proved that if you take a squared and add it to b squared, it's equal to what's called c squared, which we're calling d. Actually, it's not d. D would be the square root of that. But what we want to get at is, so there's some kind of distance between here and here. That distance, this is y2, this is y1. So if we do y2 minus y1, we will find out what this is equal to. And similarly, this is x2, this is x1. If we call this x2 minus x1, that is this thing, and we can figure out what the distance of that is, and that's a number. And if we square those numbers, it's equal to c squared. And then we take the square root, we can find out the length of that missing side. So remember, there are plenty of videos on proof of Pythagorean theorem. If you don't believe it, look for a water wheel example, and it actually physically shows a water wheel with two squared sides, and the water from the two squared sides fills up the third side, c squared. It's really interesting. It's an interesting idea for somebody to use. But with that being said, let's give you some points. If I give you 2 points in space, let's say 3, 5, and -3, 8. Okay, so we have -3, 8 somewhere over here, and 3, 5 is somewhere down here. Okay, we want to find that distance. Here is -3, 8. Here is -3. I'm sorry, that's +3, 5. Okay. So from here to here, this is -3 to 3, while that's here's 0 in the middle. So you go 3, you go 3, that's 6. So let's do that. That's 3 minus -3 squared. Okay, and then if we do from here to here, this is 8, this is 5, that's only a distance of 3. So we got 8 minus 5 squared. I guess either way, we can do it that way, or we can go like this, 5 minus 8. Just to keep it consistent if we're using y2 and x2 here. Okay. Then this is y1, x1. And then we take the square root of it. So this is going to be the square root of 9 plus 6 squared. Sorry. This is going to be 3 squared, -3 squared, 6 squared, which is equal to square root of 9 plus 36, square root of 45. And 45 can be broken down as 9 times 5, so this is 3 square root 5. So 3 square root 5. Your distance here is 3 square root of 5, which is the square root of 45. So 45 is between the square root of 49 and 36. I think it's closer. It's somewhere between here and here. So I would say this is probably 6.8 or something like that, if I estimated it. All right, with that being said, that's pretty straightforward. Another thing you can do is you can find the midpoint of 2 points. And so the midpoint of this line would basically be half the distance and half the distance, So let me mark that in blue to make sure you're able to see what I'm talking about. Half the distance and half the distance. So all you have to do is take the average of the x's and the y's. So if you have the same points, let's use -3, 8, and 3, 5. Let's take the x's. We have 3 plus -3 over 2 and 5 plus 8 over 2. Okay, this will be where our midpoint is. Well, 3 plus -3 is 0. And so if you look, remember when I did that earlier, I said, oh, look, here's 0. Well, there's 3 this way, 3 this way. That means the center is somewhere at 0. So we know this x point is 0. And then 13 over 2 is going to give us 6.5. So 0, 6.5 is our midpoint. Or yeah, our midpoint. So pretty straightforward on how to get it. It's just the averages of the x's and the averages of the y's if there's 2 points. And that is how you find midpoint and take the distance of 2 points. So give it a try, guys. Use the distance formula. Practice this on Alex. Practice this on any worksheets I might have on my site. I don't know if I have too many for these ones, but it's pretty straightforward, I think. Thank you, guys.